What if I told you that the one guy everyone said would never crack the code on NASCAR ovals just stood up in front of the entire sport and proved them all wrong? Because that is exactly what happened just days ago at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And if you have been sleeping on Shane Van Gisbergen's oval progression, you need to wake up right now. Because what is unfolding in front of our eyes might just be the most fascinating story in motorsport today. The doubters were loud, the narrative was set in stone, and SVG himself admitted the ovals were breaking him. But something has shifted, and the signs are impossible to ignore. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why the rest of the Cup Series garage should be very, very nervous right now. And if you want to keep up with the biggest stories and breaking moments in NASCAR as they happen, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we cover it all here, and you do not want to miss what comes next. So let us rewind this story properly, because context is everything. When Shane Van Gisbergen arrived in NASCAR, he did something that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming. He won the inaugural Cup Series street race at the Chicago Street Course in 2023, becoming the talk of the entire motorsports world overnight. A guy who had never raced a stock car in his life just showed up and won on debut. The internet went wild, the fans went wild, NASCAR went wild, but then the whispers started. Yeah, he can do road courses, but what about the ovals? What about the tracks where NASCAR was literally born? What about the high-banked, left-turn-only world that separates the tourists from the true Cup Series racers? And honestly, those doubters had ammunition. Entering the 2025 season, Van Gisbergen had recorded only a single finish inside the top 20 in his first 7 races, a 6th at Circuit of the Americas, which left him sitting 34th out of 36 full-time drivers in championship points. That is brutal. That is the kind of start that ends careers before they really begin. And the critics pounced. Social media was relentless. Comments everywhere saying he was just a road course ringers who would never truly belong in NASCAR, that he had no business being in the Cup Series, that Trackhouse Racing had made a massive mistake building a program around him. But here is what those people fundamentally misunderstood about Shane Van Gisbergen. This is a man who won 3 Australian Supercars championships, a man who podiumed at the 24 Hours of Daytona, a man who wins at Bathurst, one of the most demanding circuits on the entire planet. Elite racers do not just fold under pressure. They learn, they adapt, and they come back harder. And that is precisely what SVG did. In his first full Cup Series season in 2025, Van Gisbergen essentially turned road course events into a monopoly, winning 5 of the 6 on the schedule. 5 wins on a debut full season. The man was operating on a completely different level. Everywhere there was a corner to thread and a braking zone to master. He became the first driver to reach the 5-win milestone in just 38 Cup Series starts, since road course legend Dan Gurney did it in 13 starts back in the day. But the ovals were still the elephant in the room. Every post-race interview, every analyst segment, every fan debate kept coming back to the same question. When is SVG going to figure out the ovals? NASCAR. The progress started showing late in 2025. He secured his first oval top 10 at Kansas Speedway in September, then followed it with an 11th at Talladega and a 14th at Martinsville. Small steps, but real steps. He was not just surviving anymore. He was learning. He talked about the challenge of understanding car dynamics on these high-speed ovals, explaining that tracks like Las Vegas demand you go in flat and commit fully, which feels completely counterintuitive when the banking does something your brain is not expecting. This guy was not making excuses. He was doing the hard work of genuinely understanding a completely foreign style of racing, and doing it publicly in the most competitive stock car series on earth, NASCAR. And then came 2026. And then came Charlotte Motor Speedway. And then came the Coca-Cola 600 on the night of May 24th, one of the most iconic races in all of motorsport. 600 miles and one of the fastest and most demanding ovals on the entire NASCAR calendar. And Shane Van Gisbergen did not just show up, he made a statement. The Trackhouse Racing driver stayed near the front for most of the night, picking up stage points in all 3 segments, finishing 10th in Stage 1, 9th in Stage 2, and 7th in Stage 3. That is consistent. That is calculated. That is a driver who knows exactly what he is doing. He even led 11 laps late in the race after his crew chief Stephen Doran made the bold call to keep him on older tires as rain began closing in on the speedway. 11 laps led at Charlotte Motor Speedway on an oval. Let that image sit with you for a moment. Heavy, heavy. When Van Gisbergen took the lead from Ty Gibbs, he actually cheered on team radio, and later admitted it in the post-race press conference, saying you would probably hear it on the in-car camera footage. That moment right there tells you everything. This was not just another race result. This was a milestone. This was personal. This was SVG answering every critic who ever typed a single negative comment about his oval ability. His average running position of 7.8 at Charlotte was the best he had ever posted on an oval in his Cup Series career. And during the broadcast, the voice of NASCAR itself weighed in. Veteran announcer Dale Jarrett said on air that Van Gisbergen's Charlotte performance proved he is no longer just a road course driver, stating, SVG has been tagged as a road course ringer since he arrived, and tonight he just buried that narrative. When Dale Jarrett says you buried the narrative, you buried the narrative. Full stop. Beyond the flag heavy, even his Trackhouse Racing teammate Ross Chastain said he was never surprised, telling reporters that people can downplay SVG's oval and banking racing all they want, but those inside the team have always known what he is capable of once the car underneath him was competitive. And that is the key point that so many outside observers have missed throughout this entire journey. SVG was not failing on ovals because he lacks talent. He was on a steep learning curve with an entirely different style of car on entirely different types of tracks, racing against drivers who have spent their entire lives doing nothing else. Yardbarker, he already has 7 NASCAR Cup Series wins to his name, and his oval results are trending sharply upward heading into the rest of the 2026 season. The road courses were never the question. They were never the story. The story was always going to be this: the moment SVG cracked the oval code, and it is happening right now, in real time, in front of all of us. The haters said he could never do it. They said he was a one-trick pony, a tourist, a road course specialist who had no place mixing it with the oval regulars in the most prestigious events on the NASCAR calendar. But what Shane Van Gisbergen is doing in 2026 is not just answering his critics. He is rewriting what is possible for a driver who comes to NASCAR from a completely different world of motorsport. And if the trajectory continues the way it is trending right now, an oval win for SVG is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. And when that day comes, every single doubter is going to have to sit with what they said. Do not sleep on this story. It is only just getting started.